Hey everyone, welcome to the Clydesdale Fitness and Friends. Today I am going solo because we have a very, very special guest with us today. My close personal friend, Athena Perez.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be here.
So for those of you who don't know, Athena was featured in a CrossFit documentary. It was posted on the Journal a few years back, 2018, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was called The Famished, the Force-Fed, 450 pounds and finally fit.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, I actually stumbled across this video when I was perusing the journal back then. And that's how I kind of first got to know Athena. And so what was it like doing that documentary? Was that a good experience for you?
Oh, yeah. But it was really scary. I'd never done anything like that before. So I had like no idea what to expect. The guy came out here to do the filming and started asking me a bunch of questions. And I really had no idea what the end result of the video was going to be. So I was nervous and scared, and I didn't know what was going to come about it, honestly.
Well, and that's actually the person who filmed that is the mutual friend
Right.
that kind of hooked us up, and then we became fast friends because we've been through a lot of different things together.
We really
Uh,
have.
and so it's been really great having you as a friend and being able to talk through that. So
I'm,
immediately after that documentary, you kind of had an instant shot to fame. And not like fame like LA fame, but in the CrossFit world,
Mhm.
you kind of became famous pretty quick.
If you call it famous, but yeah, the video was impactful, I think, for a lot of people. It resonated with a lot of people, and I'm blessed for that.
And so right after that, you got to fly out to HQ.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do a podcast with Savon on the old CrossFit podcast.
Yes.
And I watched that a little bit today just to kind of remember some of the subject matter from that.
Oh
That
gosh.
that has tens of thousands of views.
It,
Unreal.
I I'm still mind blown. I'm still mind blown how many people saw the original journal story, and then Savon's podcast, and sometimes it still doesn't matter what CrossFit box I go to. People will be like, "Hey, I know you." It's unbelievable.
And so you got to do a couple neat things because of that,
Hmm.
right? You got
Yep,
to do the team series with some pretty cool people.
I did. A really good friend of mine, Abby, went with me, and we did team series with Ro and Adrian and um, Noah and who am I missing? Uh,
So you're talking
I'm
Adrian
missing.
Bosman,
Yes,
and you're talking Noah
No
Olson,
Olson.
and Travis Mayer. Was he there too?
Travis. Thank you.
Yeah. See, I listen when we talk.
Yeah,
And so
it
that
was
was,
was a lot of fun.
yeah. So you got a lot of really cool, fun experiences out of that.
I did.
Um, but there was one small drawback, and that is because a lot of people just wanted to talk to you. You had inspired them so much through all of that that
Mhm.
there was a lot of people reaching out to you.
We should, I mean, we should probably clarify when we say drawback, right? Like there was so many that, um, the downside is that there wasn't enough time in the day um, to write back every single person that had reached out. It was getting stressful because, like I wanted them to know how meaningful it was, and the fact that every single one of these people would, take time out of their day to send these, just beautiful messages, and so it was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. But yeah, the drawback was that there was just so many.
And you have a heart that wants to respond to every single person.
I do. I think naturally everybody would just, in them, appreciation and gratitude. And it never got old. But also that feeling of, wow, like these people took time out of their day to send me, like a high five or a hug or it was so moving.
And getting to know you, I see that heart in you, that you want to help as many people as you possibly can.
I do, but define, sometimes I feel so limited in what I can do,
So then there was a couple years before today. So that was 2018.
Right.
And I want to fill people in on kind of what happened between 2018 and now, because we ended that with you losing 200 pounds.
Yeah.
And then there's a gap, and some major things happened to you in those 2 years.
Golly. Yeah.
And so if people watch the documentary, you had a condition with your leg.
Yes.
So I wasn't going to try to pronounce it.
I'm like, like, how do I explain it? Okay. So there was multiple things kind of working against me. So there was osteoarthritis, which just is a natural, it's what happens when you have hundreds of extra pounds on your joints for, so long. It's just a natural breakdown of the knees. And then on top of that, on the right-hand side, I had Blount's disease. So it's just a really fancy word for a bowing of the leg. So somehow, we don't know how it happened, but when I was around 8 or 9, the leg just started bowing outward. It's a growth disorder of the tibia. So your legs, instead of growing straight like most legs should, my right side it bowed out. So as I got older, and hundreds of pounds were put on the knees for just so long, the knees they'd finally just had enough.
And that's a condition. The bowing of the leg is a condition that generally is a kid is put into a brace.
Yes.
And that is corrected. But for the people that did not see your documentary, you went through a lot of abuse as a child.
I did.
And that is one thing that didn't get corrected that probably should have.
It's funny that you asked. It's funny that you say that, because we've talked to a lot of specialists over the years, and they can't really deny or confirm that repeated blows to the leg didn't have something to do with the issue. Like normally what happens, I tell everybody, if anybody has seen the movie like Forrest Gump, like he had these braces on his legs. Well, he had the same thing. So typically what would happen is, as soon as it's identified, a child is put into these braces, and then they wear these braces until the leg is straight. But yes, with what I grew up with, I was never taken to the doctor. And I mean, one can only assume, but, going to a doctor's office, a doctor would see, the abuse. So I suspect that's why it didn't get seen, fast enough.
And we'll get into a little of those details a little bit later. But
Yeah.
but as we're moving through those 2 years,
Yeah.
there needed to be an operation, both on your knees.
Mm-hmm.
And while they were in there correcting your knees, you had knee replacement surgery, correct?
I had totally replacements on both sides.
Right.
There was a little extra work that had to be done on the right side because they actually had to cut into the femur and the tibia. So the right side was a little bit more challenging than the left, but so they went back to back.
And then they corrected the bowing of that leg while they were in there, correct?
They did.
And that was extremely painful.
I don't know if painful. Yeah, like it was horrible. I don't know if anything could have adequately prepared me for the recovery on that one.
So right before all this happened and you had to have those surgeries,
Mm-hmm.
you had actually thought about writing a book.
Yes.
And you had begun the process a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So, I think I first got like that. I mean, maybe I thought about it before. I mean, I kind of always knew that I would. I know that sounds kind of weird because I never really thought, I never really put that much thought into it. But um, I think I first got that, that little voice. I talk about that little voice in the book a lot. To write when I was in California doing the podcast. And a lot of it had to do with um, the questions that Savan was asking. Um, and partly because it's just there was so much more to the story, like people see this 9-minute video and they get a tiny little snippet of your life. And I felt like I wanted to tell the rest of it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So you had that thought,
Yeah.
the surgeries came, and then because of the pain,
Yeah.
you were on medication that just wouldn't allow you to keep going on that aspect for a little while.
Okay, so here's what happened. So I started writing the book, and it got it was a rocky start because I didn't know how to tell the story. I didn't I didn't know how I was going to write this thing in a way that was going to make sense to other people. And so I started writing it. I was working at the time, quit my job, and said, I'm going to do this thing. And this is what I feel like I'm supposed to do. So I quit my job, took the next 6 months off to get this book written. So in January of last year, the meat of the book was done. But then in April is when the surgery started. And again, I didn't realize when I knew that the surgeries were going to have to be done. There was never any question. I knew it was coming, but I underestimated how I was going to feel. I don't know why I didn't connect all the dots. I thought I was just going to go in and have surgery, and then, bada bing, 6 weeks later, I'd be back in the groove. But that's not what happened. So, yeah, there was about 8 months where I kind of had to put everything that I was working on just, on the back burner and wait for recovery.
Well, and I don't want to miss the chance to talk about CrossFit a little bit. We are a
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit podcast, and CrossFit played a major role in you losing the weight. And how we kind of connected is we both went through some trauma after losing a lot of weight. You
Yeah.
with the surgeries,
Mm-hmm.
me with my back injury, and trying to get back healthy enough so that you could walk back in a box.
Yeah.
For someone that was as big as you and I,
Yeah.
that first walk in is so hard.
You
And
know,
then to have to go through it again, I think it
yeah.
was almost harder the second time.
I was just going to ask you the same question. Did you find the first one harder? Because I found the second one more difficult. And I'll let you tell me, I think that we both share the same views on why that was, but I think the second time was harder. Do you agree?
I totally agree.
So why was it that way for you?
So the first time I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I
Yeah.
was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was so supportive when I got there before I really even knew what I was signing up for.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't say no to the people. And by that time, you're already hooked in, reeled, and just on the groove and moving. That
Totally.
second time, I knew what to expect, and I knew my body wasn't going to be able to do what it used to do.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That's how it was for me too. I think for me, the second time I walked into the box, first time I walked in the box, at least I was walking. The second time, I couldn't do anything. I mean, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even get up off the rower without having to, align the rower just, just perfect with, the ropes that came down from the ceiling so that I could hoist myself on and off the rower. I just felt so powerless. And, the legs aren't working properly. They're not moving properly. And so trying to do those movements the first time, I honestly believed, like, that first visit, that, CrossFit was going to be, it was going to be over, for me.
It's funny you say that, because I actually did that with the rower as well once, where
Did you
I
really?
put it by the rope
Yep.
because my back just wasn't strong enough, like,
No,
to
yeah.
just hop off something anymore. I had to be braced, and I had to
Yeah.
do it gingerly, and it was just a different experience.
Same thing with the knees, you don't realize how, well, you don't realize how much you use your legs, right? But then you don't realize how much of a bend that you need to have, to do certain activities, like get yourself up off a rower. You don't realize how low a rower is until you try to get up off of one, and then realize that you have to have a 90-degree bend or more just to get yourself up. So that was hard. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd make it.
Yeah. And it's just all that work you did to make it easy all of a sudden just became hard again. And all that work was in front of you again. And now you
Yeah,
know what you have to do. Yeah, brutal.
it was it sucked.
It did.
It's dude, it sucked. I to have to go back through all that a second time was brutal. And then there was the weight gain too. I put on 42 pounds with surgeries, and that's not because of the surgery. Let's correct that. I was pounding chocolate chip muffins, feeling sorry for myself, thinking that my CrossFitting days were over. So it was a lot of pity, self-pity. But now you have to go back. And not only do you have to go back and learn how to do everything over again, but now you got to repeat some of the progress that you made. So it was brutal.
It is. I did the same thing. I put on more than 42 pounds during my back injury, and still fighting that fight. But we'll get there. And
But see,
you're back at it.
yeah, but I mean, like, this is what people don't understand, is that if you don't know about me and Scott, this is why I think we connected as quickly as we did, because we shared that in common, and we both understood what that felt like, because we felt like, I mean, Scott, I don't want to speak for you, Scott, but I felt like I let myself down, and I let, all those people that were out there rooting for me down, and then I had to do it all. You got to do it all over again. Not all over again, but you know what I mean?
Right.
There's nothing worse than having to repeat some of that progress.
Yeah. You're not supposed to make me cry on this podcast.
No. Oh.
But yeah, talking to you is like, it's almost like a mirror, and you could finish my sentences because you've been through the same thing. And it was just, it was just the fact that Mike hooked us up and we got to share that together was awesome. And I've been wanting to do this podcast with you forever.
I know. We've literally been talking about it for a long time. For those of you that don't know, his name is Mike Coslap. You should look him up on Instagram.
Yeah, he's a pretty amazing guy too.
He's the shoot.
You can say shit on our podcast.
He's the shit.
Yeah.
He's great.
So you went through the surgery, you got back to the box.
Yep.
And you had to go through something a little even more traumatic. You had to find kind of a new box. And that wasn't an easy process, because with everything we go through, you have to have the right coach that's willing to give you that time and to teach you how to scale, and especially for the injury that you're going through. You and I both have an L1.
Yep.
So we know like how to scale a normal athlete, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your experience is there where you can scale through an injury.
That, and can we be objective enough with ourselves that we're able to scale ourselves? Because we can't get out of our own head, right? So that's part of it too.
Yeah. And you did end up finding an amazing gym and an amazing coach.
I did.
That you've been working with for the last 4 months, maybe?
It's been almost 6 months, actually. I've been with my coach. Yeah,
Time
I know.
flies
Time
through a
flies.
quarantine.
Like, where did all the time go? Yeah. My new coach is Addison Bain. He's phenomenal. And he can scale. I mean, not even scale, but just to have the patience to work with somebody through an injury. It's hard. We had to learn, believe it or not, when, the kind of the training progression that's kind of happened is just like learning how to step up and down off of a plate, like a simple 25-pound plate to a 45-pound plate, and then working our way back up to, like a 12-inch box. And there's just been a lot of progressions, picking up a bar, having the training bar too heavy. And it's not just that you're fighting. It's, how do I explain this? Knowing where you used to be is what's going on in your head that entire time. So like I could pick up a bar and, deadlift, for instance, I could put 200 or 300 pounds on the bar and not rattle me at all. My first day back to the gym, like I couldn't even pick up a bar with 210s. It was too heavy. And, like all I wanted to do was cry because I didn't know. I just couldn't believe it.
And you've come pretty far in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, we're rocking and rolling, getting these, the legs are getting very strong. It's taken a while, but I can walk, and we started trying to learn how to run. I don't have any interest in running, but I just want to be able to do it. So, he's teaching me how to use the legs and just to get them working like you do when you run. But if you've never run in your life, it's like teaching your feet how to land, and it's all that cool stuff that I can learn how to do now that the legs are working right.
So now that we've got everybody caught up to kind of where you are today,
yeah,
your book that you have been working on
yes.
and had to put aside for 8 months has been finished. And you gave me the honor of being able to read the book prior to it coming out.
Yes.
And I know, and we're going to let disclaimer, there have been changes made to the book since I've read it. So I can't wait to see the
minor changes. So the addition was the lesson. So that's kind of what you're missing. And of course, some of the editing. So you don't,
right.
You're going to get to read the book again without all my grammatical errors,
Yeah. And so I want to talk about the book.
Okay.
What was your motivation behind wanting to do it?
I talk about it in the book, and I'm hoping that I'm able to explain it here.
We don't want to give too much away of the book.
We don't, do we?
Because they're huge surprises. I gotta say, and I want to be the first critic to say it is the best book I have read in a very, very long time. That's
a huge compliment. It really
and
is.
There are turns and twists that you just cannot predict. And we don't want to spoil that for any reader that's going to pick up the book, but we're going to talk about general themes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so your motivation, I know you talk about, you go ahead and try to explain, because it is hard. It's going to be hard to explain kind of without giving too much away.
It kind of is, right? And I was nervous about that too, even just coming on here, because I was like, people have asked me that question before, like, Athena, what is your book about? And I'm like, well,
So I have three big themes from your book,
Yeah.
right? And maybe that'll help because that'll it's a little bit ahead in my notes, but so
Okay.
so my first theme is that the book is about you trying to run away from your problems.
Yeah, that's a
And
great theme.
and for those who did not see the documentary, you went through hell as a child.
Yes.
And I don't, and if you saw the documentary, there's even more that happens that was not said in the documentary. My heart broke for you, that little girl, and what you had to go through. And just briefly, if you want to touch on that, your parents got a divorce when you were very young,
Yep.
and you had to go live with your stepmom and your dad.
Well, she moved in.
Okay.
So my mom left, and she moved in, and I want to say they were married within like a year and a half of my mom moving out. So it was a very, relatively, quick dating period and her move in. Um, but yes, it started shortly after they got married and she moved in, and it went on. I was almost 11 when I moved out. So you're talking pretty close to 7 years.
And she put you through hell. It was, and I think you posted on your social media recently
Yeah,
that she gave you the book Cinderella
she did.
and said because you and Cinderella had so much in common.
Hmm. You know, I had somebody comment. Well, a lot of people commented on that. That was just yesterday, right? Um, Somebody said, what do you think she meant by that? And I'm like, well, I think she was up to no good when she wrote that. I asked her about it. I think I was like 9, and I took the book to her, and I was like, what did you mean by this? And very sarcastically, like she always was, she said, well, Athena, you are a princess, just like Cinderella. So that's why I wrote it. And, like even at 9, you can feel the, what's a good word?
Sarcasm,
Yeah, it was,
but stronger.
yeah. What's a stronger word than sarcasm, right? Like, I'm lacking dictionary words here. I knew it wasn't good. Like,
Yeah.
okay, she was being sarcastic.
And her track record at that point was really bad with you. I mean, she was starving you. She wanted you to lose weight.
Yeah.
Um, she would force feed you at other times.
Yep.
Uh, and there were times where you had to like store food in your bedroom so that you wouldn't be so hungry through the week.
Yeah, I did a lot. Even when I moved in with my mom, she'd come in my room and she'd find stuff when she was cleaning up my room, or she was, gathering my clothes to do laundry and stuff, and she'd find all this stuff, and she'd ask me about it, and I couldn't tell her how anything got there. Like, that habit was so firm by that point that I couldn't explain it to her ever when she'd ask about it. I don't know how the stuff got there. But yeah,
Yeah.
she'd find stuff all over my room, in my drawers, in my dresser, under my bed. And it could be anything, like cans of food, boxes of crackers. I mean, it really didn't matter what it was. It was like a mouse stockpiling cat food.
Yeah. And I remember you saying like even frozen loaves of bread you would put in your room so you'd have something to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, One of the big stories from the documentary that really like just angered me was
Angered a lot of
was
people.
was the soup and the salad where
Hmm.
that she set in front of you. It was a pot and a family size bowl of salad,
Yeah.
and forced told you you had to eat it all.
So the backstory to that, right? So there was a backstory that wasn't talked about in the documentary. So she was mad at me because the day before I had gotten caught with food. So it was something that happened pretty regularly. I wasn't like, a criminal. I was young, so I got caught sneaking food all the time. So it was just another time. It was countless times that I got caught. And when I say I got caught, it was usually like in the middle of the night, like I'd be sneaking in the kitchen to go get something, and she'd wake up because she slept on the couch. So the living room with the couch was right next to the kitchen. So she'd hear me, and she'd wake up and she'd catch me in the act. So this happened to be one of those times where I think it had happened so many times that I feel like she was just, she snapped. And so when we walked in to the house that day, and she had put this bowl of salad and this soup at the end of the table, like I knew already. When she pointed and she goes, Athena, that's your seat right there. And I knew with all that food there, like, oh boy. I didn't know she was going to make me eat it all, but like I knew what was going down.
And she did make you eat it all to the point that you ended up throwing up.
Yeah, I mean, when she first started, I was like, I guess you're young, you don't connect all the dots. I didn't. So when she said, eat the soup and eat the salad, initially I was like, cool, it wasn't that big of a deal. I was like, all right, I'll eat it. And, in my head, I was like, well, maybe I can eat it all. Who knows, right? So I wasn't alarmed when I first started, because I was just like, well, I'm going to eat till I'm full and then she'll make me go to my room. I didn't really understand the punishment when it started, until until I started getting full. And that's when she said, no, you're going to keep eating it. And it just continued. And so every time I'd stop, and if I, like you get full, just like you and I get full, like you can't eat anymore. And so at the minute that I'd put my spoon down, she'd come running over and she's like, nope, you need to keep eating it. So that's kind of how that started.
And you got to the point where you did throw up in the bowl.
Oh yeah, like I threw up all over it.
And she covered it and put it in the refrigerator and said that was what you were eating the rest of the week, I believe is how the story.
Well, yeah. So basically what happened is I told her I'm not touching it. Like it's got throw up in it. I'm looking down at it. There's throw up all over everything. And she said, fine. So she walks over to and I don't remember if she got it or she made me get it. It's been so long I don't remember. But one of us went and got the saran wrap. And she's putting the saran wrap over the stuff, and she's like, that's fine. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and you can eat it tomorrow. And I didn't actually think she was serious. Like I thought she was just, I don't know what I thought at the time. I just didn't actually think she was serious. But the next day, breakfast rolled around. It's time for breakfast. And here she comes. She walks over to the refrigerator, grabs the pot and the bowls from the refrigerator. She takes the saran wrap off the top and she sets them down in front of me. She's like, this is breakfast. I told you it was going to be breakfast, and you're going to keep eating this until it's gone, or you don't eat at all. So like by that time, I'd already been through like days and days without food. Like if you've ever been starved, it hurts. It's quite painful when you get to that point. So I'd already known what going without food for days at a time meant. And I wasn't interested in going without food. And I also wasn't interested in getting hit. So, in my mind, eating it was the next best option. So I just plugged my nose and chewed. Because, when you plug your nose and chew, you don't taste anything. So that's how I got it down.
And so that, when I heard that in the documentary, it was, I mean, it just made my blood boil when I read your book and realized that that was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So from that point, you then, and we talk about the theme of running, and then you
Yeah.
kind of, you moved in with your mom,
Mm-hmm.
and then you spent some time there, and there were some bad times there as well. You
They were
then,
very difficult times. Yeah.
then you moved to Texas
Yep.
and hit some bad things there.
Gets worse. Yep.
Yeah. You moved back to Washington.
Yep.
You moved back to Texas.
Yep.
And then finally, you were going to move to New York, right?
I wanted to. Yeah.
But eventually you ended up going to Minnesota.
Right. Which is where I live now.
Right. And you finished running. You
Right.
found that, right? So that's kind of a theme 1 through the book.
Mm-hmm.
Theme 2 to me is faith. Whether you knew you had it at the time or not.
Mm-hmm.
Faith is a very strong presence in this journey through the book.
I would definitely agree with that.
Right. Even at times you didn't know you had it,
Mm-hmm.
you had it.
Yes.
And then the last one is that it becomes a journey of self-reflection.
Yes.
In order for you to find peace.
Yes. A lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, just exposure to things I'd never thought about. Finding that we can become our own enemy. Yeah.
And that you can't run from the problem.
Well, I mean, I thought it would work.
You definitely tried.
Well, I tried. But no, I always thought when I did it, it was going to work, but it catches up to you every time.
Yeah. And so those were the 3 strong themes for me.
Yep.
While reading it.
Yep.
I also, kind of to backtrack just a tiny bit,
Okay.
I heard a quote that you said in your documentary that your weight loss journey wasn't a weight loss journey. Do you remember that? Do you remember saying that?
I do. Yeah.
You said, but a journey of discovering you and what you were capable of.
Yes.
And what's funny is when you first told me about the book,
Mm-hmm.
My first thought is, I know Athena as, the weight loss queen. I'm sure it's a book about weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the furthest thing from a weight loss book.
I'm glad we're actually talking about this. Excuse me.
Sundrift. This burp is brought to you by Sundrift.
You don't even have to bleep that out, Scott. We'll just keep that in there. That little fizz moment brought to you by Spindrift.
And I'll toast you with my O2.
Mm.
O2 not carbonated, so that
I've never tried those, by the way. I don't know why O2 isn't sending me a bunch of those.
Well, O2 they are actually from my hometown here in Columbus.
Are they really?
Yeah.
That's why you got the hookup there local.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
If you'd like to sponsor this podcast, O2.
He's like,
all right.
O2,
so
you're hearing it right here.
Now that we've added some brevity to our podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
Your book, Not Being a Weight Loss Story.
I think that, honestly, I think that that's surprised a lot of people already. There's about, I think about 10 readers now that have gotten the opportunity to do pre-reads. And I think that has been the number one comment thus far, is that they're surprised that it's not a weight loss book. I think naturally people assume that was what it was going to be about. And I'm not going to say that there's not an undertone of that in the book, but that's not the central theme. I think you would agree.
I completely agree. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, and not to get off too much
Yeah.
topic, but weight loss is never about weight loss. You don't gain
No.
weight and just say, I'm going to reverse this. There's
Yeah.
some underlying issue that
Yeah.
always has to be solved for you to figure out so that you can lose weight.
I'm actually hoping that this book gets some exposure with some of our fellow coaches, because I think that one of the biggest misnomers about people that need to lose a lot of weight, or even just some weight, but when obesity is a problem, I think that there's this misunderstanding, shall I say, that all they need to do is stop eating. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Does that make sense? I think, yeah, obviously it would. It makes sense for us, right?
Exactly.
I think that there's this misunderstanding in our community, and that every coach that believes that if they come up with the perfect nutrition plan, that that's going to solve somebody's weight problem. And what they don't understand is that the weight itself is not the problem. Food by itself is not the issue. It's what they're using food to deal with. It's how they're using food to deal with whatever it is that's going on. So unless you deal with whatever it is that's going on, it doesn't matter what nutrition plan that you put them on, they won't be successful doing it.
It's like you're reading my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You read mine all the time.
So if people are expecting a weight loss book,
yeah,
I would say it's bigger than that, right? Weight loss is one issue in the world.
Right.
And you experience other issues that have nothing to do with weight gain,
mm-hmm.
and things that you have to overcome that are much bigger than weight loss.
I think that, yeah.
Now the problems may have caused some weight gain, but yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's a much more complicated issue than people realize. When you see somebody overweight in the grocery store, it's not because they're just sitting at home eating a box of Twinkies. It's complicated. And I think that was, I think the book does a very good job. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think it does a good job at illustrating that it's a much more complicated issue.
And I think you do that well, because the issues that you have to battle through are much more complex than a simple weight gain issue.
Yeah, it's not that simple.
Reading the book, I have so much admiration for you. The strength that you had to overcome a lot of the things in this book just blew me away.
Thank you.
So where are we at here in my notes? So the book kind of goes through all these things that you face, right?
Right.
It's this moment in Washington and this moment in Texas. So when you were going through these issues, you didn't take on small issues. The book demonstrates some pretty major issues that you went through.
Yeah. So, I've told people before, it's not like an autobiography, like it doesn't list every single thing that's happened to me. So there was very specific examples that were used. So it just happened to be the best examples that described the scenery, the feelings and the scenery the best. So the most impactful examples were used. Yes.
Yeah. Even if that's just the high notes of your issues, you're just one strong woman.
Thank you.
So with the book, you actually, at the end of each chapter, when I read it, had just a small little lesson, kind of
Yeah.
a self-reflection thing that you put at the end. And you've changed that up a little bit. And it's
Yeah.
actually kind of a really cool concept.
Yeah.
So can you share with the listeners what you've done to kind of beef that up a little bit?
Yeah. That's something super fun to talk about. So, I don't know where the idea came from. Yes, I do. So wait a minute. Hold on. Yes, I do. So Greg, we can probably talk about him too.
He's next in my notes.
Yeah.
So we can
So
combine this together if we need to.
so Greg said, "Hey, I love these lessons and they're super impactful, but we want to expand on each one just a little bit more." So initially I was like, I was so exhausted at just the thought of having to go back and write all of these lessons all over again, because I'm like, this is going to be so much more work, like who's exhausted. And so I got the idea to bring in some friends, some people, and amazing people that I've met along the way, some people that I didn't know, but I knew them, people that inspired me. Tasia was one of them. And so essentially
Tasia Persevich.
right. And so each lesson, some of them were just mine because they were very specific and I couldn't really team up. But some of the lessons were general enough to be able to collaborate with, another person. And I think I think the reason why I wanted to do the collaborations was to, pull other members from the CrossFit community together in this. And it was a very personal book, but I wanted to basically demonstrate that we all bleed the same. All of our stories are different, but we all bleed the same way. And we all have stories. They may sound a little bit different, but we all feel the same thing.
And so you had Tasia Persevich, you
Yep.
had Rory McKernan.
Yep.
I don't want to mess up Tyson.
I know, like, oh gosh, I hope I don't
Yeah.
miss anybody. Okay, so we had Rory, Tasia, Tyson Oldroyd. We have Mike Koslap, that guy we were talking about earlier. We have Coach Knight, Chase Knight. We have Sarah Critch. She's a coach here. Let's see. We have Al Sangapolitelli. He was another journal story. Justin Gert was also another journal story. Who am I missing?
I know that you have read
Jen Pendleton. Jen Pendleton. She's gonna kill me.
Wasn't she the first one?
She was the first one. Yeah, she actually does the first two. Jen is awesome. She's another fellow L1, and she's got an amazing story of her own.
And so you actually read a couple to me.
Yeah.
Just to get my opinion, because I'd read the short version.
Right.
And then you read a couple to me, and man, I was blown away. Just because you get kind of that other person's perspective of that situation,
mm-hmm.
and some outside influence into that lesson. It was, I can't wait to read them all.
They were, I can't believe they really came together. I don't know what I had envisioned, but it was neat to be able to collaborate with just so many amazing people.
So you mentioned Greg Amundsen, not by full name, at the beginning of this.
Yeah,
kind of came up with this idea, and he plays a huge role in this book.
He does.
Before even either of you really knew he was going to play a huge role, he played a huge role.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to spoil too much, but you had a chance meeting with him.
Yes.
Where you got to meet him And it was just an unexpected kind of thing.
Very unexpected for both of us.
And this story is in the book, so I don't want to give it away.
Correct.
But he gives you a book that kind of inspires the direction of this book.
Yes. I mean, we could talk about this part, right? Like,
yeah, I want to leave that up to you.
Yeah, I mean, we can tell that part.
Okay.
So Greg gave me a copy of The Warrior and the Monk. And it wasn't until I read this book that I realized where the book needed to go. Because I felt like I had read my story when I read it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is where the book needs to go. Like I knew, like I had my answer.
And so you actually met him while you were getting your L1.
Yep.
Not in the L1 class. Again, it was a very chance meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You read that book on the plane ride home.
Yep.
And that kind of made that direction go. Fast forward, 2 years later?
Yeah.
You're in a Bible study
Mm-hmm.
with Greg.
Yeah.
And he makes an announcement that you didn't know he was going to make.
I did not. So he said, Athena, we need to, get this book published. And I was like, it was shocking because we never had a conversation about the book. So like, again, it was just one of those second things that, like, I think when people read the book, they'll understand how all this works. But it was just as shocking, and it was just how things line up. Sometimes we don't understand. It's going to give it away, but it's powerful.
It is. And my favorite line that you told me in that story was that you said to him, but you haven't even read the book. And he said, but I know the author.
That's right.
And
it's
so
powerful.
Greg's company is publishing your book.
Yes. Eagle Rise Publishing.
And so that it wasn't even expected. You were going to self-publish was your kind of your plan.
Yeah, that was always my plan. I never really thought about it, but the funny thing is that it couldn't have been more appropriate. But it was shocking because he didn't know that he had become part of my story. And then, so it was.
Yeah. From an outsider, it is one of the coolest stories. And being your friend during that time was so much fun as all that was kind of developing.
Yeah, that's right. It developed real time, like live with you, right?
Right.
I call Scott on the phone. I'm like, can you believe this is happening? This is the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah. Because we usually talk midweek, and you called me on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Like,
that never happens, guys. We always talk on Wednesdays.
Maybe a Thursday if things get crazy.
Maybe Thursday.
So,
hilarious.
So your book's being published. Mm-hmm. It is now out for pre-sale.
Yes.
On Kindle, on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon doesn't let us do pre-sales on the paperback. So paperback will be out later in August or July.
And you tried to explain to me that it's hard to get a specific date with Amazon. And
it's not hard to get a date. I mean, your publishing date is whatever you say it's going to be.
Okay.
The system.
So maybe I misunderstood that part.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's basically whatever you tell it. The complicated thing is just getting all those little details ready. So it takes a little bit to.
Yeah. So you've been live on Kindle, like for pre-sale. Right. You have been number one. I think I lost count in categories.
It has been a best new release in 4 different categories, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Doing
So you
well.
lost count too.
I did. They change all the time, but in categories that I wasn't expecting, I couldn't have asked for better.
Yeah. So when does it go live on Kindle? Do we know that date yet?
Yeah. So the book gets released on Kindle on July 7th.
July 7th.
I know. It's like less than 2 weeks away. I can't believe it.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
You believe it?
My heart just skipped a beat. So,
I know. Mine too.
and then the paperback, the target area is early August.
End of July, either that last week of July through, it's like the 28th through the 4th, somewhere in there.
Okay. So excited.
I know. It's exciting.
And so I'm going to put up a picture of the cover of the book.
Yes.
Right here. And this is what you're looking for when you go to the store to buy it.
Can you believe it?
So I just want to finish up with just some friendly talk.
Yeah.
I could not be more excited for you. The amount you've put into this book, and as inspiring as it was, you are to me. I mean, you were inspiring to me in 2018 before I knew you.
Oh.
And when I got to meet the real Athena, there was no disappointment. You're just as inspiring and such a good friend. And I could not be more excited for you.
That means so much, man. I value our friendship a lot, and it's a crazy small world.
It
And
is.
the things that people are able to connect over because it's a shared response. It's just it truly is an amazing thing.
So to end on a funny note or
What?
an inspiring note, we have, I don't know if we want to disclose it here, but we've decided to do something a little crazy.
Really?
Yeah, you texted me last Friday.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we. I was like, I thought like somebody was gonna pop out behind the door or something there. I was
no.
What's gonna happen
this
right
isn't,
now?
This is your life or anything.
I was like, what? We didn't talk about this, Scott.
Well, yeah, but we talked about it, just not for this.
Yeah, like we should tell everybody what we're doing. I feel like we should have Al joining us and Jen. I feel like all four of us should be here.
We should do another podcast with all of us because
we totally should.
We all kind of have that similar story.
All four of us, yes.
Yeah. And we've all been through a lot.
Yep.
And the three of you have journal stories.
Jen doesn't.
Oh, she doesn't? Oh, good.
No.
Now I'm not the only one.
No. No, but she should. She should.
And so Athena had this. We've actually talked about it for a couple months.
We have.
When you did a podcast with someone who did an event this year called Wadapalooza.
Yes. Jason Weiss.
Yeah. Great episode on your podcast.
Thank you.
He did the beginner division at Wadapalooza as an individual athlete.
That's right.
Right. So they actually have a team division for beginners. And Athena, myself, Al, and Jen are going to do the online qualifier to try to get into the beginner division.
That's right.
At Wadapalooza.
Can you believe it?
I
don't know about you, man, but I'm just so excited. I think like for me, like to be able to even think about something like that after the injuries that you've been recovering from, the injuries, just learning how to walk again, right. I hope I don't cry. I mean, it's amazing that I just feel so lucky. I'm so excited.
So we're asking all of you to cheer us on.
Yes.
And root us on. to get us to Miami next May.
Yep. I'm waiting for the dates. I had it originally posted. I got ahead of myself on the stories because I thought that the qualifier was going to be in December, but they hadn't changed the boards on that. So I think the qualifier is going to be in January.
Okay.
So that's even better because that gives us more time.
So Wodapalooza is generally like end of January, beginning of February, and they actually moved it to May next year.
I got one word for that, man. Sticky. Like it's gonna be hot.
It's
like
gonna be hot. But I've lived in Florida, and I was running away from my problems.
No. There you go. It'll feel like San Antonio all over
And when
again.
you're near the ocean, which Wodapalooza is right on the ocean, you do get a really nice breeze. So it's not sticky. It may be hot.
I was telling, I don't know if this actually, I can't remember if this actually went into the podcast or not, but me and Jason were talking about sharks, right? And making a joke that one of the events is actually called shark bait. Like for people that don't know, like I have this horrible fear of sharks.
I did not know
went
that.
out. I don't fear many things, but I saw way too many. I saw the movie Jaws when I was young way too many times. It scared the hell out of me. Okay. It's the same thing that happened with Children of the Corn. Okay. I will never go wander around in a cornfield in Ohio. It's not going to happen. But,
was that a jab at me since I live in Ohio?
Did I just say that?
You did.
Yeah, I took a jab at the Ohio cornfields, man, but Minnesota cornfields are just as bad. So I'm trying to conquer my fear of this whole shark thing, right? So I went out and I got what do you call those? So my swimming attire has Jaws on it, so I feel like it's a good first step to help me overcome this fear of sharks. I think you get a kick out of it.
So my fear about this whole thing is there's always a swim event at Wodapalooza.
Yeah.
So I was a competitive swimmer into college.
Okay.
So swimming was always my jam. But I have not swam in any type of capacity in 20 years.
For me, like the swimming wouldn't be so bad, but like when you're carrying around extra weight, you're extra buoyant in the water. So, it could be, that's always been like one of my fears. I don't really swim, I float.
Did you have to say that when I took a drink?
What?
I thought I was going to spit my drink, my O2, my lovely O2 all over my screen.
That's what I thought. Like I'm just to kind of break it out and be honest kind of girl, like I don't swim, I float. I just float along the top of the water. Should be an interesting event.
Yeah, for me, it's that expectation thing that we talked about with going back to the CrossFit gym because I was a competitive swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's what's in my head and what's reality.
That's true. Like, how have you given that any thought?
A lot of thought since you sent me that text.
Really?
Yeah. Like I need to get my ass in a pool and just kind of see where I'm at so I don't overinflate my expectations.
Well, I haven't really given it much thought. To be honest with you, I wasn't even thinking about swimming. Maybe I should. I wasn't even thinking about swimming. I was thinking more like, the activities like with my legs. Like I was thinking about like, golly, like, what if they have us run? Like I don't know how to run yet. Every time I try to run, the legs, they get like a little off balance. So, but you know what? Like I feel like we should just go and have fun, and we just do this qualifier and just have fun doing it. Like who cares?
Yeah. we got to get through the qualifier first. I should
I was
think
like, we're all
about
talking
that.
about going to Wadapalooza. We haven't even
Right.
made a classic qualifier. But that's that good stuff that you have to send out there, right? We are going to Wadapalooza.
Right.
We are.
So
It's going to happen.
this has
O2
been
is going to
awesome.
sponsor our team.
O2.
They just found out today.
And Spindrift.
Spindrift. And
so this has been an awesome podcast for me. I love you to death, my friend.
I love you too, man.
You are such a strong woman and such an inspiration. And I hope that your book goes gangbusters and the world gets to see kind of what you've overcome and how you've overcome it. Cause I think that's super important.
Well, I appreciate it. Like this is the first time since the book was done that I've, just been able to talk about what it is. And it's awesome. It's really cool. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Well, thank you, Athena, for joining us. And we'll see you next time on the Clydesdale Fitness and Friends.
Love you guys.